Hello there! So, I've been getting a lot of questions recently about the different VIP families in Dragon City, and a lot of newer players in particular being quite confused as to which VIP family does what their skills actually are, what their differences are. And if you're wondering what a VIP dragon is, generally what people mean is the pass dragons that you see in, say, the Divine Pass. Like currently we have an Arcana dragon, we have Arcana Death, for instance. And so each VIP family typically has a specific skill to it. And so that is what we are going through today. So the first ones we're going to go through are going to be the really simple and easy ones, which most people have a firm grasp on. And then we'll go through the others that have some differences between each version. So, the first one that we've got here is Metal Titan and Titans in general. Now, Titan dragons, the only skill that they have is a shield that blocks a singular attack. This may not seem massive, but it actually can be quite useful against certain skills, like really high damage skills that enemies use. That is the only thing that Titans have. So, like, if we go and open the game, we'll open up one of our Titan dragons here. You will see that they have a little shield in front of them. And so when it gets attacked, this shield dissipates. And so that means that the shield has been used, the dragon no longer has a shield and just gets attacked as normal. They've got no other skills apart from that. Oh, and just very quickly, I'm not going to be talking about the VIP heroics in this because we're talking specifically about the family of dragons, just so that you know. But yes, Titans have a shield. Now, the other dragons that we have that are very similar to Titans are the corrupted dragons, which are corrupted Titans, essentially, which are more or less upgraded versions of Titans. They are also much more difficult to get. So, these corrupted Titans, they also have a Titan shield, as you can see here on Corrupted Legend, so he can absorb one attack. But corrupted dragons also have a leech ability, similar to vampires, but the leech that corrupted dragons have isn't quite as strong as the leech that vampires have. But you will see here it says steals life points from the opponent, so essentially corrupted dragons have a shield and a leech. The next type of dragons that we have are vampires. And so if we take a look at Hexed, for example, the vampires have a leech ability, a strong leech at that, and they also have another secondary ability. So for instance, Melody here has Leech Fang, which steals life points from the opponent. So the more damage you do, the more health you'll suck back up. And Melody also has Hex Agony, which is a multi-hit attack. All vampires have two skills, one being a leech, one of them being just a different skill entirely. So Hexed, for example, has a leech and multi-hit, whereas if we look at, say, Prideful has a leech, but he has Reckless Victory, which is a leech plus a huge damage attack that also hurts the user. So each of these different skills that the individual vampires have, you just have to learn what they are and how useful they are, really. Sinful, for instance, he has a leech, but he also has Asphyxia, which deals low to medium damage, but gives an extra turn. So each of these vampires will have their uses in different places, and some of the other dragons in the game are also like this that have a different secondary skill. But the vampires, their main skill is the leech. Now, the next type of dragons that we have are Karma dragons. And now, Karma dragons don't have a specific attack skill. Like if we scroll down here, you'll see that their basic attack skills are just, well, they're just regular attacks. But what Karma dragons have that other dragons don't have is they have the ability to block any attack in the game. And then after they've blocked the attack, their next attack after that will be a crit attack, which means, you know, more damage that they're going to be doing back. But every single hit that they take, they have the chance of blocking that hit and instead taking 0 damage and then turning it into a crit attack the next time that they attack. So basically, it's almost like having a shield, which then allows you to do a lot of damage back, is essentially what Karmas have. And that is the case for all of the Karma dragons. No matter which Karma it is, they just all have the ability to crit you and block incoming attacks. And that's for every single attack that comes in. So a Karma could, in theory, if you get really unlucky, block 10 of your attacks in a row, and then they're going to crit you 10 times in a row back. So those are Karma Dragons, and it's why people love having Karma Dragons a lot of the time. Next type of dragons we have are Ascendeds, and Ascended Dragons are a little bit different because we have version 1 and version 2 Ascendeds that have a different skill. So for example, Ascended Praetor here, if we scroll down, he has an attack called Divine Intervention, whereas Ascended Deity has a very slightly different one in the form of Divine Sacrifice. So they sound pretty similar. But Divine Intervention, if we click into this, you'll see that it deals any remaining damage to another opponent. So what this means is that if this Ascended type finishes off an opponent, takes their health bar down to 0, then the remaining damage spills over to the other enemies that haven't already been hit. So that is Divine Intervention, whereas Divine Sacrifice damages all opponents and heals all allies, but it takes HP off of the user. So basically they sacrifice their HP to damage all of the opponents and heal all of their allies. So the attacks are quite different in that sense, and a lot of players really prefer Divine Sacrifice over Divine Intervention, just because Divine Sacrifice generally has it's just generally more useful usually. So that is why some of the Ascendeds such as Deity are often looked for a lot more than the other kind, but they both have their uses, the different versions. The next dragons that we've got here are Arcana Dragons, which are another VIP family that has split skills. So for instance, Arcana Hermit has a skill of Arcana Absorption. However, Arcana Wheel, which was the original Arcana Dragons that came out, has instead Berserk. And so the version 1s, they had Berserk, which the damage inflicted increases with the amount of damage received. So depending on how much damage the dragon has taken in, that will increase the damage that they can deal. But of course, that is quite risky. There is no way to reliably use this against certain dragons unless you know that you're definitely not going to get, knocked out the next turn or two. The other Arcana skill, Arcana Absorption, however, is very different to this. It hits multiple times, heals the user, and damages all opponents. So they're basically nothing alike in terms of skills, but this can be very useful at times. Healing the user, hitting multiple times can be really useful against, say, Titans, and then damages all opponents, which can also be really good for last hitting. So there is that as well. So usually the Arcanas that have Arcana Absorption, so Hermit for example, are the ones that people go for more often. So next up we have Redemption Dragons, which are another split family. We have Redemption Dragons that have no skills down here. You'll see that, for example, this bro, Redemption Blade, which is the legendary primary element, he has no special attack skills. However, the ones that don't have special attack skills, they have the ability to revive any fallen teammates. And you will see these dragons a lot in Arena, because essentially if someone has one really good high level dragon, like a level 70 or a level 55 Karma, they'll throw Redemption Blade in there so that then once the Redemption Blade dragon dies, and say the Karma dragons also died, then it's going to revive the Karma. Or ideally, if it's a really good level 70, if your level 70 dies, then you put in Blade, then when Blade dies, you'll get your level 70 back with most of its HP. So they can be really useful if you don't have 3 level 70s to use in the arena, and you just need to revive your main dragon back again. So that is why these particular redemptions are, they're used quite a lot. The other redemption dragons that we have are dragons such as Redemption Doom. Now these redemptions instead, they deal damage. So they have a skill called No Remorse. And so you'll see here, No Remorse damages all opponents, but the user is hurt. So it's similar to the Ascended skill in terms of it takes HP off the user and damages the opponents. So the uses of the two redemption types of dragons are completely different. One is very supportive based, the other one is very much just attack based, And usually it would be the revive redemptions that are used, not the ones that have no remorse. But again, there's still places where they are used, it's just they're not used quite as much in, say, certain arenas. Now, the other dragons that I want to speak about are the Walking Dead dragons. And every single one of the Walking Dead dragons has an incredibly overpowered skill in the form of Bunker. Now, Bunker deals damage and reduces damage dealt to the user and allies for several turns. I believe it's 3 turns that the shield stays up for. Well, I should say 3 attacks, incoming attacks, is what it stays up for. And the thing is about the shield, it stops you from being crit by enemies. It is a very, very powerful shield, and it's the reason why the Walking Dead dragons are so sought after. But on top of that, the Walking Dead dragons also have a second skill. Every single The Walking Dead dragon has a second skill as well as Bunker. For instance, Michonne here has Katana-lation, which deals damage to all opponents. So it's just basically a multi-opponent hitting skill. Whereas we have, let's say, Maggie. And if we bring up Maggie here, and we scroll down, you'll see she's got Bunker, but she also has another skill called Safe Zone Serenity. And this one heals all allies. So you can imagine putting Bunker shields up, plus having the ability to heal is also pretty good. But honestly, all of the Walking Dead dragons are really sought after. They're really good, generally speaking, and everyone argues over which one's the best. But Walking Dead dragons in general are very, very strong because of Bunker, primarily. So those are the Walking Dead dragons in a nutshell. It's a shame they won't be released again, but they are very strong dragons. Next up, we have Dual Perception and Dual Parliament. Now, these dragons both have a skill that gives them an extra turn, but their second skill is where the difference lies. So for instance, Dual Perception, I know loads of people love Dual Perception. He has an ability called Time Steal, which deals multiple hits and also gives an extra turn. So it's very similar to, say, Sinful's Asphyxia. The only thing is he gets to deal multiple hits on top. So sometimes this is considered like an upgraded version of the Sinful Vampire's Asphyxia skill, but you know, they've got different uses, they're different element types as well. But getting an extra turn is always really nice. Dealing multiple hits, really nice against Titans, for instance. The other skill that Dual Perception has, which people also love, is Dual Rebound, which deals huge damage, but the user is also hurt. So this is similar as well to the Ascended skill. It's basically like you take damage yourself to deal huge damage out to the enemies. There are a few different skills that are like that aren't exactly the same, and they've got different percentages on them, but this is a really strong flame skill from the Dual Perception dragon. Now, Dual Parliament, however, is slightly different because Dual Parliament may have Time Steal, which again is the same thing, deal multiple hits and gives an extra turn. So they've got the same time ability, but then the complicated part of Parliament is that she has a skill called Dual Destiny. So rather than having that big explosive attack, instead there is a random skill that is used out of these skills right here, which you'll see it's either heals the user, heals all allies, switches out the user, or deals damage. And this is the reason why most players go with Dual Perception instead of Dual Parliament, because the randomness on the second skill is quite iffy, and you know, a lot of the time switching out the user, I don't really see that having many uses a lot of the time. Random damage can be really iffy. Team heal is nice, and self-heal can be nice, but the other two are a little bit they're a little bit in their usage compared to just how consistent Dual Perception is, so that is why those two are different. Then of course we have Eternal Dragons, and Eternal Dragons don't have a specific different skill down here. You'll see they're all regular attacks. What Eternals do is when an enemy is below a certain amount of HP, they will finish off that enemy. So for instance, if you had an Eternal Dragon in a fight and the enemy was on like 20 HP, rather than you having to take another turn, it will just instantly KO that enemy with a cool little animation if you've ever seen it. So that is the reason why Eternal Dragons as a whole aren't really that sought after for battle uses. I will say that out of all the VIP families, the Eternal Dragons are on the weaker side of all of them. Just because right now, I know that it can be useful with, say, you know, certain perked dragons, like if they've used Phoenix perk and come back to life, or, you know, if they just don't have a perk and they're just low HP in general. But compared to some of the other skills, the Eternals are lacking a little bit, to be honest with you. Now, I can't remember if I've missed any other dragons out of this list of VIP families and, you know, their various I guess skills and what they do. I did also create just a very quick notepad file of all of these different, you know, differences between each of the families. Maybe I'll make some sort of infographic for it as well, but this basically just goes and explains what the general skills do for each dragon. But again, there are some minor differences between like the leech that corrupted dragons have versus the leech that the vampires have, and the different percentages on the other skills, which make some better than others. But if you're a new player, you just more or less have to remember these things and get used to them as you go through. And, you know, if you ever want a good idea of what's being used in the meta, try and get a snippet of people's enemies in, say, Masters 3. Like right here, you can see we've got a Redemption Blade and a Karma Dragon, and a really easy breedable, for instance. Next set of dragons, this is a super easy team for us to beat up, so we'd go ahead and destroy this one, for instance. And then next one, we've got High Ascended Supreme, who's a VIP heroic, so of course he's being used. Redemption Malice is a revive redemption, so what their plan here would be to either use High Ascended Supreme's Dream skill, which ends up taking his own HP and, you know, murdering lots of things. And then if he gets taken out, you can revive him with Redemption Malice, or if Ambition Karma's in a better position to KO any enemies, when Ambition Karma dies, then you make Malice die, and then you get your Karma back. So, again, this is why players use specific dragons in arenas, because, you know, having a free revive on a level 60, 70 VIP heroic, for instance, would be absolutely nuts. Now, I did say I wouldn't go in depth about these VIP heroics, but I will just mention very briefly that certain dragons like those, they just have a lot of skills from the other families. So let's have a look at High Corrupted Time, because High Corrupted Time used to be the dragon that everyone wanted. And the reason that VIP heroics are wanted so badly is because they're heroic, so they've got really high base stats, but they also have lots of skills. Lots of random skills or lots of interesting skills. For instance, High Corrupted Time has the Corrupted Dragon Leech, but he's also got this Wind ability, which is similar to Dual Parliament in the sense that it gives a random skill. So you use Last Breath, and then you can either use the Hexed, Sinful, or the Envious Vampire skill. So that means either no survivors, Asphyxia, which is the one that gives an extra turn, or Hex Agony, which is multi-hit. So just imagine the vampires already being pretty good with their skills and their leech, but then you get an upgraded version of them with, you know, the potential to use any of these skills, which I don't like the randomness, but at the same time, all of these skills are pretty decent. No survivors, if you don't know what it is. It's small damage is dealt to all opponents, so that one's usually not the one that people want. It's normally either Asphyxia or Hex Agony that people want to roll into, but it can make the battles kind of interesting as well when you're doing that. But that's why the VIP dragons are just so sought after, because, you know, they all bring a skill from their family, say their specific family. Like, let's very quickly look at High Ascended Supreme, who of course is a heroic ascended dragon, and he has Divine Sacrifice, and he also has Divine Intervention. So he's basically just all those ascendeds from before, but put into one and put into a heroic form. So for the VIP heroics, you just have to learn what their skills are. There's no way to just look at them and know exactly what their skills are going to be. And if we get any new ones, it's going to be the same. You're just going to have to learn them and learn what they do. So I believe that this is pretty much everything regarding these sorts of family of VIP dragons. Of course, if we get more VIP families that get released, which I'm sure we will, we will have to go through those as well. There are also heroic dragons and other legendaries that have skills. An example of this being a very common one being Detonation, Mr. Cosmic Detonation, who is a breedable legendary, but he actually has Cosmic Incineration, which deals damage to an opponent 3 to 4 times. So it's like a hexed vampire, but it's a flame skill and it hits 3 to 4 times instead. But of course he doesn't have leech and he has different elements. And so you got to take into account the elements of a dragon that you're using, each of their skills, and you know, how well they do in each of the arenas that they're available in. So I hope that this gave you a very good insight into the different VIP families. If you're gonna ask which one should you use on your team, it really depends on the elements that you need, because you gotta remember that in Masters, only certain elements are allowed, and certain elements are not allowed as well. So for instance, at the moment in Masters 3, it's shadow dragons that are being used, well, dark dragons, so the dragon has to have dark element. So the more elements you have on your team, the higher the chances that you'll have more dragons available for different arenas. And then once you've got a dragon that's got a good skill, you've got a good range of elements, and then you can take them up to level 70, that is basically the end game battling of Dragon City. But anyway, if you are confused about anything, of course, you can jump into my Discord server and ask any questions in here. You know, I'm sure that there's tons of other people that would love to know the answers to any questions you have specifically as well. But I just wanted to go through each of these families of dragons. So I hope that that helped. And for now, good luck making a good team.